Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another interview of Experiences Living Abroad. I'm here with Mr. St. Clair. How are you, St. Clair?
Fine, thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. And tell our viewers, where are you from?
I'm from Washington, D.C.
Yes, so a little local love there. So tell me,
Yeah,
where are you currently?
I'm in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. And so you've been doing a lot of investing abroad, starting business abroad. And I want to talk a little bit more about how you started. So from coming from Washington, D.C. to various countries in Africa, how did you even begin that?
Well, it's not a brag, it's not a humble brag. I got connected to a friend of mine in the White House, and I told them that I wanted to do projects in emerging markets.
Mm.
And so the Prime Minister of Mozambique, we had a meeting. They said, "Well, we have these things that we're trying to accomplish in the district. Do you think you can help with that?" I said, "Yes." So I said, "I don't want any compensation. What I would want is access to projects in your country." And
Mhm.
6 months later, I got it done. And that was 7 years ago.
Okay. And so, do you have any recommendations for those individuals who are interested in starting work in Africa? Of course, Africa is a whole continent
Yeah.
in various countries, how they can start. Does it make sense to kind of have a business in the US first and then approach certain countries in Africa?
Yeah, you want to have an established company in the US. They're going to do a background investigation on your company. Um, it, it makes it easier also for investors. When you need money from the African Development Bank or the World Bank or the IMF, they're going to want you to have an established American corporation.
Hmm.
Usually, I would say at least 5 years. And make sure your digital presence has been very, very cultivated. You don't want, like, if you do social media, make sure your social media is of a certain standard.
Hmm.
They look at everything. When I say everything, I mean everything. If you had a post from 2009, they will find it.
Hmm.
So just be mindful of that. But yeah, starting a company in the States, not only does it allow you to pull funding, but you can have a partnership with a company on the continent.
Hmm.
If you don't want to have a company in country itself,
Hmm.
and it makes it easier. If you do have a company in the States, it makes it easier to establish a company on the ground anyway.
Interesting. And
Because,
so, oh, sorry, go
go ahead.
ahead. No, no, no.
I was going to say, because you would use it as a holding company. You would use your American company as a holding company for all the companies that you have on the continent.
Okay. But when you do that, I don't want to go too far in taxes, but will you still be taxed as, would that company be taxed as an American company versus a company that is in Africa?
It
So will you be double
depends.
taxed?
It depends on how you how you structure your company.
Okay.
If you structure if you structure your companies on continent as SPEs, Google it. If
Mm-hmm.
you structure it as an SPE, you won't be taxed. If you are doing projects that have to do with the government, and if you're
Mm-hmm.
doing projects that, let's say, like I have a company in Mozambique, and my company's situated in what's called like an industrial and development zone.
Mm-hmm.
All companies doing projects in that zone are not taxed.
Okay.
So you want to look for those type of opportunities. In some cases, yes, you are double taxed.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at certain technology companies, when they go abroad, they are double taxed, and sometimes it's just that individual country.
Mm-hmm.
So the best thing to do is get a good tax lawyer, get a group of tax lawyers,
Mm-hmm.
get and get a number of accountants. Get an accountant for the U.S. and get accountants for whichever country you're going into. You need
Mm-hmm.
lawyers and accountants for each place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And can we step back a little bit
Yeah.
from you? growing up in DC to having a connection in the White House, there's a big old gap as to like how you even started or even considered to do business in Africa. Was it something that you always considered when you were younger and you just, work, backwards or forwards to figure that out? So how did that start?
Well, I was talking to one of my neighbors. This was like in '08 or something. And, the crash happened and he was in finance and he was in like dire straits. And he calls me and says, look, man, I'm going to Nigeria for, 9 months to 13 months. I'll see you when I get back. He comes back with $6 million.
Jesus.
I said, okay. I said, okay, that's the move. Like, that's the move. Like, and I did film production for this, and usually, like, with the level I was at, you're at like $500,000, or the most I ever got was like $2 million. But that's over like a long period of time with extensive work. This dude's talking about 9 months, 6 mil. I said, okay. We started talking. I said, how can I get involved? And this is where I feel like I have respect for the Ivy League. He went to Harvard Business School, and he said, I will give you my Harvard connection.
Wow.
And that is how I got connected to the White House, through his Harvard connection. And it just went from there. Everything I have now started from that call.
Wow. Okay. So I know we definitely talked about networking and things in prior videos and how it's important to establish your network before you leave the States. Yeah. And I mean, that's just proof right there.
Look here, I am a college dropout, right? My network comes from a variety of different places. I can meet anyone and talk about anything, but I fully understand the power of sort of collegiate networking. My college, no, there's no networks whatsoever, unless you're in fashion or something. No, but I will really, really promote an Ivy League education.
Interesting.
Like if you can do it, because the network is just phenomenal. And I'm not talking like, oh, maybe I'll do this. No, when someone told me they were doing A, B, and C, I got A, B, C, and D. And I'm very appreciative of that network. And it's still working for me today. I don't even know. I don't know what would have happened had I not made that connection.
So what recommendations would you have for those individuals? Because like yourself, you didn't go to Ivy League school, said you was a college dropout. So if that is the case of people who have already, of course, way past the years of college, what are some of the recommendations that you give in regards to building that network?
I would say, okay, you have to look at the people around you, okay? You have to understand what people's strengths and weaknesses are and what they're capable of. And then you look at your immediate circle and you say, okay, what can I build from this? If your circle is not in the right position to help you build, you need to expand your circle. And sometimes you have to go to places that you may be uncomfortable with. Like I put myself in a position where I can meet different individuals who I knew could help me gain an advantage. Like in most cases, like they would tell you either take up golf or smoke cigars. Well, I fucking suck at golf, so I smoke cigars.
Okay.
That was also another way how I grew my network. I would say 30% of the deals that I've made in the last 10 years have come from me smoking a cigar with a dude. Like,
just like in random places or just going to cigar lounges? Like what?
You have to. So my skill, one of my major skills, is being able to read a room and read a person. So I can look at a room and I can see, okay, which guy's bullshit and which guy can really do something.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a small, minuscule conversation, working your elevator pitch, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you look at that person and you say, okay, I'm going to spark up this conversation. I'm going to see where it goes. A lot of times, this culture of cigars is a very expensive habit.
Mm-hmm.
So the majority of the time, when you're dealing with a person in that lifestyle, in certain places, it's going to be a high net worth individual
Mm-hmm.
or someone who's trying to attain a high net worth. So either way, you're going to deal with somebody who is like-minded, who's
Mm-hmm.
also being aggressive, who's also trying to make money. And that's what I did. So it's not just the cigar life, it's also other places, joining organizations. Like I joined economic development groups. I joined different groups that were involved in the areas in which I wanted to focus.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was an energy consortium. I joined that, even though I was new to the game. I was only a year in,
Mm-hmm.
and it was 15,000 to join. I said, okay, how much am I willing to put up to really make advances? So I did. I sold a couple of things because at the time I had almost just went bankrupt. So I had almost no money, but I had a lot of accoutrement. I had, a Rolex and some other stuff. I sold everything so I could start my business. And that was a part of starting my business, is finding different groups that could help me achieve what I wanted to achieve.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to touch upon, like, you went from video and production to something completely different. What is your industry now?
It's basically I do energy and water and wastewater.
Okay, so changing those two different industries and kind of just dealing with the learning curve, but yet still trying to, be confident that you can do the job for these various government agencies. Like, how was that transition?
I took 18 months to just study as much as I could. And another ability that I had was, if I can look at something, I can learn it. Like, some people have to study and they have to do all these things and they have to, again, go to school. I didn't have to do that. If I see something, all it takes is like maybe 2 or 3 times and I got it. So I started to examine different energy processes, what worked, what didn't, and I started to do designs on my own. And I also understood my shortcomings though. I understood that I won't know everything, and I'm gonna have to have people around me that can fill in those gaps. So one of my business partners now, I met him 8 years ago, and he dealt with microbiology and other sciences, and he could assist me on the things that, like, I had a vision for. He could fact check me anywhere where I had shortcomings. He could fact check me. And I understood that with energy and with other processes, it's going to be legal things that I need to know. So I had to find a partner that could take on the legal aspects of it. And then I had to learn like the rudimentary parts of business. I took some stuff from what I learned in film production because I dealt with massive budgets. And honestly, another part I did was I did these little stupid side jobs to learn how they do what they do. Like, I was in advertising and film production, so I knew how to construct a story, but I didn't know how to illustrate to a client like pain points and things that you focus on. So I took a job for one summer, like 3 months, with a renovation company because they showed you, they trained you on how to attack pain points for someone who you can be feeling perfectly about whatever situation you're in. But once you finish talking to me, you're going to feel like, oh, damn, I really need this dude. Like he has that I need. And that's what I did. I learned from all these different aspects, and I brought people with me who could help me with things that I didn't know. And that made it easier. And then you also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go carry on.
Look, you also have to adjust your image. You know, gone was streetwear. Gone was anything that didn't look like I was who I was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, vernacular change. You know, the way you speak to people, you alter it just to make sure that you present yourself in a way that they don't question you. You know, because the first thing that anybody who I deal with looks up is they say, "Oh, you used to do film production. How did you end up here?" That's the
Mm-hmm.
first question every single time. But
Mm-hmm.
also knowing that, I constructed the story where they were like, "Wow, that is interesting."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that was the hardest part in transitioning from where I was to where I am now, is making sure I could construct the story so people can digest it and not feel like, well, he doesn't know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a good population of viewers that are watching that are interested in moving to Africa or doing business in Africa. And prior to the conversation, we were talking about the political unrest that is going on where you are currently.
Mm.
So how do people research? Because it's interesting, because people ask me, why didn't you move to Africa? And I chose Europe. I chose Europe for a variety of reasons. But I think what in America, as African Americans, a lot of us have been traumatized just based on the violence that is, geared toward Blacks. And
Yeah.
so the goal, I think, particularly for those who have not traveled, they immediately assume, well, let me just go to Africa. And I don't think everyone knows or considers some things.
Put it mildly.
Particularly if you just haven't traveled, period, to just know that there are certain things that are different in different countries. And if you haven't gone or been there, you really have to be prepared and how to research what countries may be experiencing some civil unrest. Because, I mean, we're having that in America, of course, not to the degree of some
Mm.
countries, but it's kind of important to research those certain things so that you know what you're getting into when you decide to make that leap.
So the State Department has a handbook that is posted online that shows you all the conflicts around the world. That is
Mm-hmm.
something that comes in handy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you will not see a lot of conflicts on the news.
Right.
Just like while the conflict was going on here in Ethiopia, there was no news coverage because they
Mm-hmm.
blanketed out everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the State Department handbook and the CIA handbook are something that is very useful. And then sometimes you got to do a deep dive. Like a lot of people love South Africa. It's an amazing place. But last year, between September and December, there was a lot of xenophobia going on, and they
Mm-hmm.
were out all foreigners. I mean, they were murdering people.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be mindful. But you have some countries that are very welcoming. So you have Rwanda, who is they're stating that they're very open for foreign business. That's a place that seems to be up and coming. It's supposed to be like the Singapore of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
You got places like Ghana that's always been open for folks,
Mm-hmm.
especially Americans, African Americans anyway. Um, Sometimes this is another thing. So there's consuls usually in every city, in every major city in the
Major
States.
city, right?
Yeah. So sometimes you just set up a meeting with a consul, get to know different information. There are, for a lot of major countries, there are different social groups. Like in a place like DC, there's more than 90 social groups that you can join.
Mm-hmm.
That if you want to learn something about a certain country, you go ahead and go.
Mm-hmm.
Join up, you have a conversation, get to know folks, and they'll explain to you what their experiences are and what your experiences might be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the best thing, you start out with the handbooks. That'll give you a broad idea of what place may be safe for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go towards the consulate, and the a lot of times the honorary consul will explain things to you. And then after that, you look at the social groups. And sometimes there's expat social groups from those countries, like online. I don't use Facebook, but there's a lot of expat groups on Facebook that explain to you what their experiences are while they're still there. That's another good resource.
And so for you, because you have various companies in various countries in Africa, how did you go about trying to figure out what you needed to do to be legal in those countries? Did you just hand that over to the lawyers, or did you have to do the research to find out what was okay and not okay to become registered in that country?
My journey was a little bit different. I went directly to a prime minister and then 2 ambassadors, which is something that you can normally do, but what I did. And when I did that, they set me up with various people, in country. And that's pretty much how it happened. And then after that, I got my lawyers to double back on everything that was going on there. I understood that I needed international lawyers, not just local attorneys. And that is how I did it.
So for those individuals don't knowing, an ambassador, what are some recommendations you have for them in regards to kind of figuring out how to navigate? Well, I guess you answered that, doing the connections before you leave the country and go into those different organizations. If you don't live in a major city and you're watching this, I think the thing that can continue to remember is that most of these groups there's so many online communities that you can join and be a part of to ask questions and do the same things. So how has moving out of the country changed your perspective on life? What would you tell your DC self?
Don't focus on local. Local is not enough. Globalization is everything. I've had more opportunities in the last 7 years than all the other years combined. Like you couldn't even fathom like what the differences are. It's night and day. And the way I'm treated here, oh my goodness, it's so different. I mean, for those fellas, your dating life is completely different when you're
for the women too.
It's true.
My life has been changed in Europe.
You know what? Portuguese do love some black women. I give you
It's
that.
not just Portuguese people in Portugal, but we digress. We'll have this conversation off the camera. Carry on, please. Carry on.
Yeah, I mean, so many different, like the social life is just different, and you get different perspectives. I grew up in Anacostia, Washington D.C., which is like socioeconomically, it's like one of the poorest neighborhoods you can live in. And I do thank my mother for sending me on my international journey starting when I was 10. So that allowed me to see that there was more than just DC. I would say to any parents out there, send your kids abroad. Don't, I understand they want the Xboxes and the PlayStations and all that. My mom said, no. We're going to get you this ticket. We're going to send you on these trips. So every summer,
at 10?
I went to Ghana at 10.
Okay.
My dad's family is originally from Ghana, and he still had some family there. So I was there for a year. And then the next year was England for like a Boy Scout camp. And the next year I did Italy. I did Italy basically like 3 years in a row. And so, which would explain my first wife, but that's whatever. So I was accustomed to being abroad early on. And I would say, like I said, if you are a parent, that's something that you should really take advantage of. You know what I mean? Let your kids see that there's more than just their local surroundings. And, they get a sense of being more. Like, you're not just your block. You're not just your neighborhood. Because in D.C., where I grew up, your neighborhood was everything. Like, you rep your neighborhood till you die. Like, you're supposed to get a tattoo on your back. Like, that's how it's supposed to be. But nah, son, it's a whole new world out there. Like, there's so much to see. And that's the biggest thing for me, is like so many different places, so many different cultures, taking in all this like information. And what you see on television, what you read in books, a lot of the times is not what it is.
Right.
Understand, most of the time, the people who conquer, they write. They tell you what things are, but you need to see it for yourself. Like, growing up, you always saw, Africans with the bugs in their eyes and all that. Listen here. When I went to my family's house in Ghana when I was 10, their house was 10 times the size of my mother's house. And when I go to Joburg now, I mean, it looks like New York, just on the continent. Like, it's things are not what you think they are. So go out, take in some culture. Don't be culturally bankrupt. You know what I mean? Go out there and experience some things and make money. Like, I'll tell you one thing. We paid for an iPhone, unlocked one for like $800, right? I just sold an iPhone for $4,000. Literally.
Okay.
Like this, when you move and you make some things happen, you always see these opportunities that you just didn't know were available. The international market gives you things that you just didn't know were possible. Just because things are readily available wherever you are from, there's somebody else who has a lot of money who wants that thing that's not available to them. So go ahead, pack your suitcase full of some things. Look here, you paying $15, $20 for some Fashion Nova? Somebody here paid $200 for that same outfit. Believe me.
No, I think I agree. And I felt like you touched on a bunch of good points. I felt like when I'm in the States, I felt stuck. I felt like my entrepreneurial creativity was just dying. And soon as I moved to Europe and everything was kind of different, I kept seeing all these various opportunities. And it was like I was feeling like my brain was moving again. So that's a really good point. So any entrepreneurs watching this and you feeling stuck, I would tell you, like, changing your environment and seeing, the necessities of the environment helps out so much.
Yeah. And I've seen different types of hustle. And this is one thing that I harped on with a friend of mine last week. There's a shoe shine dude outside my place, right? Actually, not a dude. He's a boy. He's maybe 12. He's outside every morning, rain, hail, whatever, 6 o'clock. Every day from 6 to 6.
At 12 years old.
12 years old, every day. That is the hustle that I like to see. And so, like, normally you pay a shoe shine boy like 10 beer or something, which is like 30 cents. Nah, he gets $5 every day from me because I see that hustle. I want to see that same type of hustle where I come from. I just don't see it. I don't see some kid in Anacostia like, yo, let me shine your shoes for $2. No, these dudes are hustling, man.
They're hustling.
And so, like, I'm talking to the kid. He's like, his pops is gone. It's him and his moms and his brother. Somebody's got to go out there and help them eat. He's helping them eat. I got to respect that. You know what I mean? Like, I seen so many different people just like get their hustle on. I want to see that everywhere. I'm not saying quit your job. I understand that some of y'all love your jobs and all that. I'm not saying quit your job. I'm just saying do more. You know what I mean? Don't settle. That's not the way to go. Find something that you appreciate. Let's say you have been in your job for 15 years or 20 years or something. You've learned enough knowledge. You gained enough knowledge. You can branch out on your own a little bit. And as African Americans, so this is one thing that, this is also another thing that I got on with someone. We have so many hidden opportunities. The government, the federal government, is required to hire African American companies first. There's a point system for all these different contracts, right? We get the most points off rip. Like from the beginning, we get the most points. Military and black people get the most points. If you are a black former military person, you just printing money. So there's no reason why you shouldn't go ahead and start up a little something, even if it's small. You start with something, a contract that's like $3,000 a month, $5,000 a month, and you just grow. Like that's the kind of thing I want to see. And when you enter the international market, things are just even more plentiful, man. Like they have to give you this money. A friend of mine is going to Afghanistan, and they were like, "Why are you going to Afghanistan?" They said, "Man, I did IT in the States, and I made $70,000, right?" Cool. We had talked a few years ago, and I gave him the process, how to set up his company. I got him with some lawyers, every step that he needed to do to start his own company. $4 million for the same thing that he did for $70,000 in DC. You know what I mean? Just take what you can, branch out, embrace globalization. That's all I say.
No, and I appreciate that. And for anyone listening, and I know you're like, well, Google, you can use my assistant. She's free. Her name is Google. Check into the 8A program for the federal government. That was a program that one of my businesses a long time ago was 8A certified. And that is a minority certification. You have to be in business for 2 years. Go Google that and just start there. Also in your state, look into being local. It's not called local small disadvantaged business. There's certain empowerment districts. If you decide to start a business in a particular location, you get benefits and points there. In addition to the local state government and then federal. I hope that helps. And last question, what advice would you give for those individuals who are considering moving abroad?
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. I mean, I understand it can be a daunting thing. It's something that, you have to weigh the opportunity cost though. You have to weigh. I look at everything as economics. Weigh the opportunity cost. What are you giving up in order to achieve what you want to achieve? It's that simple. You want a better life and you think living abroad can do that for you, take that chance. You do not have to be afraid. If anything happens, you have a support system that will help you. And keep your head on the swivel. Look, hood rules still apply, okay? They still apply. You know what I mean? Believe me. Believe me, they still apply.
Mr. Sinclair, you are appreciated. Thanks for
problem.
joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Experiences Living Abroad. Thanks for joining us. Till next time.